We're now going to look at categories 3, 4 and 5 of our environmental classification of water and excreta-related diseases. Category 3 is the Geohelminthiases, and these are caused by soil-transmitted helminths, or worms, and they include Ascaris lumbricoides, the human roundworm, Trichuris trichiura, the human whipworm, and the two species of human hookworms, Ancylostoma duodenale and Neceta americanus. Ascaris, an adult Ascaris, is about the size of a pencil, slightly smaller, but that sort of order of size. These soil-transmitted helminths have no intermediate host, and basically the transmission pattern is the excreta of one person onto soil and then into another person somehow, either by mouth or through the skin. And they are extremely common infections. Their prevalence is often over 50%, and in low-income areas, particularly peri-urban areas, it can be over 90% or even 100%. In the world, something like 2 billion people are infected, which is very roughly a third of the world's population. So they're very common and very serious. This 4-year-old Kenyan girl was given a vermifuge to kill the worms so that she would excrete them, and she excreted this very large number of Ascaris worms. So her worm burden was extremely high. We're now going to move on to category 4. These are the Taeniases, or tapeworms. And we have the beef tapeworm, Taenia saginata, and the pork tapeworm, T. solium. And they have a cow or pig intermediate host. We're now going to look at category 5, the water-based diseases. And these are all helminthic infections, with the exception of a couple of bacterial diseases due to Legionella and Leptospira. For the helminthic diseases in this category, the pathogen has to spend part of its life cycle in one or more intermediate aquatic hosts, the first or only one of which is an aquatic snail, and inside this snail, huge asexual multiplication of the pathogen takes place. A very common water-based disease is Schistosomiasis, also called bilharzia. The eggs of the worm are voided in either the feces or the urine, and if they get into water, the eggs hatch, and the hatchlings get into a water snail. Inside the snail, there's this huge asexual multiplication, and cercariae leave the snail and then come into contact with a person who's in the water, and they bore through the skin to set up the infection again. It's quite a serious disease, with something of the order of 250 million people, almost all in developing countries, who are infected with this disease. This slide shows the life cycle in detail of Schistosoma hematobium. In this case, the eggs are voided in the urine, but for the two other common schistosome infections, due to Schistosoma mansoni and Schistosoma japonicum, the eggs leave us in the feces. This slide shows two adult worms, the larger female worm and the smaller male worm. Most eggs are voided in the feces or urine, but a few get sidetracked and often end up in the liver, and the liver recognizes them as foreign bodies and so encapsulates them to protect itself. And if you have just a few schistosome eggs encapsulated in your liver in this way, that's no big deal. But if you have a large number, then your liver starts to malfunction. And if your liver malfunctions, then so do you. And this can have an important effect on cognitive function. A study in Tanzania found that a heavy burden of schistosomiasis, together with poor nutritional status, was strongly associated with cognitive impairment in school children in the age group 9 to 14. Verbal short-term memory and speed of information processing were the two areas most affected. So schistosomiasis has a clear adverse effect on children's learning abilities and thus on their education.